The reception of Nevsky is, of course, a function of when it appeared. It appeared at the end of 1938, beginning of 1939 was the year that it was widely seen, both in Russia and abroad. And of course, this was a period when the clouds of war were gathering. Everybody knew that the likelihood of a major war was on the cards. So people, in some ways, of course, received it as a premonition of what was feared, what did happen at the end of 1939. And in many ways it played very well because of that, because the Teutonic Knights were obviously seen as sort of avatars of the Nazi stormtroopers. But things began to change once the film was out in 1939, because the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany signed a non-aggression pact. And suddenly anti-German propaganda was completely off the agenda. So the film was pulled from cinemas in the Soviet Union. It continued to play very well everywhere else, particularly in Britain and in America, extremely well. It was the most widely seen of Eisenstein's films. But in Russia, it wasn't spoken about. And Eisenstein was in fact given the job of directing Wagner at the Bolshoi Theatre, which he really enjoyed doing. But that was very much a diplomatic move to put on Die Walküre at the Bolshoi. The film, I think, was disappointing to some. People who had been fans of Eisenstein's work in the 1920s, who really knew that better than anything, were disappointed because, well, some critics in America, especially left-wing critics, said, well, it's just like Hollywood. Super Hollywood. What's gone wrong? Why is Eisenstein, imitating the likes of Cecil B. DeMille? And of course, in many ways, it's very different from what Eisenstein had been doing with Battleship Potemkin and October, great films of the 1920s. But of course, it had to be different. What would be the point of him trying to make a late 20s silent era type film in 1938? He had been thinking a lot, he'd been planning, and he loved the idea of creating this sort of mythological world of 13th century Russia, which no one had ever seen on the screen before. So he was free to create it. And we have to remember that the two people who made the film, Prokofiev and Eisenstein, were both devout admirers of Walt Disney. There's a lot of Disney in the film, and I think in the music.